Welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. I'm Tim Bonnell back here with another solo episode, part 2 of our frequently asked questions. And many of these are about aircraft insurance. So coverages, questions specifically related to aircraft coverages. And so I'm going to just dive right in with our first question. And that is an always popular question. What factors influence or create my premium, my aircraft insurance premium? What are the factors that create the pricing for aircraft insurance? And really, there is a lot that goes into that, but I'm going to try to simplify it for you here in just a few steps. And so the first is the match between the aircraft and the pilot, right? So aircraft have, such diverse operations of power, speed, capability, size. And so does the pilot's experience meet the, necessity to safely operate the aircraft? And if someone's less experienced, they're probably going to have a little bit higher premium until they have more experience in aircraft, whereas more experienced pilots will have, obviously the best terms available for that potential aircraft, those who experience and those pilots who train regularly. Training is a big deal to aircraft insurance underwriters. Also, that matchup includes, is there a good safety track record for the aircraft? There are certain aircraft and certain aircraft classes that have, typically higher loss rate, records. And so that will influence the premium towards the higher level. At the same time, there are pilots who have losses or claims or accidents. So claims or losses with the aircraft or the pilot always influence the, what the ratings are going to be. So, so the pilot experience is a big deal. The loss experience of the pilot, and then the loss experience and the capabilities and size and power of the aircraft. So that's kind of the first consideration that goes into the factors affecting aircraft insurance premiums. The next are actually the values of the aircraft. So what is the insured value of the aircraft? That's a big deal. Some aircraft are, let's say $50,000 in the United States, $100,000. Some of them are $80 million or more. So obviously, the higher the insured value, the higher the premium. In general, obviously, as the premium or as the insured value, also known as whole value, as that goes up, typically the rate charged, per thousand of the insured value comes down. So that's why we say the rates came down. The actual rate changes, but that's the rate applies to the insured value. Now, once again, in aircraft insurance, almost every policy is written on an agreed amount, stated value basis, meaning that the amount stated in the insurance policy, which is agreed to by the insured and the insurance company, when the policy is issued, that's what they pay in the event of a total loss. A lot of people get confused because in automobile insurance claims, they pay what it's basically worth at the time of loss. So insured value. So the whole value, the insured value, is a big factor in the pricing. Now, there are a lot of negative consequences of overinsuring or underinsuring the aircraft. And usually the underwriters will not let you go too far away from what an aircraft blue book type value is without some sort of justification or substantiation anyway. But you want to insure that aircraft for what it would cost to replace one of like, kind, and quality. So aircraft physical damage coverage, aircraft liability coverage, right? So the third party potential damages to other, people, other property, and passengers. The number of seats affects that. Again, the pilot, all those things I talked about with the pilot and aircraft match, the number of seats, areas of operations, obviously those impacted. Another big deal is the use. Using it for your pleasure use or pleasure and where you may use it to travel from one business location to another is going to be a lot lower rate than for chartering other people or, other types of commercial uses. So the use of the aircraft is a big factor in the rate. The territory also comes into play. And that's really a big deal. In traditional underwriting for aircraft insurance, these are the biggest factors. Now, we're in a new age of AI. And so telematics and AI are bringing a new element to underwriting that is continuing to look at pilot performance. So those who train, make good, safe decisions, they're going to get a benefit to their premium. And that's something in addition to training you can do. And right now, the age of a pilot is still considered broad base. And with the AI and telematics coming to underwriting, that's going to continue to improve. So those are kind of the major things. There's other things that might come up, the airport where you're based, other factors. It's really a complicated matter, which is why there are aircraft insurance underwriting specialists. But those are the major factors that really come into play that affect your aircraft insurance premium or pricing. All right, next question. How can I reduce my premium or improve my terms? Everyone would love to lower the cost of their aircraft insurance policy. And at the end of the day, there are a few things you can do, and there are things you should not do. And I've touched on those in the past if you follow me, right? So the first thing is to fly safe and have no claims, right? If you have safe operations, no claims, that's number one. Regular training, most carriers love to see annual recurring training. So that's a positive factor, number two. Number three, the more experience you have in an aircraft, the more, that is a positive benefit to your aircraft insurance premium. And certainly in certain aircraft, gaining additional ratings will improve it. And I'll tell you right now, as a private or just general commercial pilot, an instrument rating will have a more of a benefit on the insurance pricing for light aircraft than a commercial or ATP. The instrument rating obviously is going to be required in most high performance multi-engine aircraft. Most people in turbocharged aircraft, a lot of underwriters prefer, and a lot of them require someone to have an instrument rating. There's other carriers who don't, but you'll be paying more money if you don't have that instrument rating on a higher performance complex aircraft. So that instrument rating is a big one. And I'll tell you, the question comes up a lot. Typically, they don't change midterm. So if you're in the middle of a policy and get a rating, they don't make those changes to the premium until the policy renewal. That's a frequently asked question inside of a frequently asked question. But gaining more experience, avoiding claims, training well, those all are positive influences to your aviation insurance policy. Obviously, there's some other things that can benefit it. The long-term relationship with an insurance carrier over the long run is typically positive because there are people who jump, they want to just save money. But if they have a claim, they're more likely to not have insurance next year, or there might, let's phrase it this way. People who have a long-term relationship with an insurer get more favorable terms at renewals, and certainly they get extra benefits in having a long-term relationship with an insurance company. So that's usually a positive factor over the long run. And again, if you have a claim and you've been with a carrier in the long run, they're less likely to give such a severe response with the aircraft insurance renewal terms if they offer them at all. So long-term relationships with the insurance company itself is always valuable. So, those are just some of the key things you can do when it comes to aircraft insurance. Now, here's some things you should not do, and that is to use an artificially low insured value. Again, aircraft insurance, if it's a total loss, it is going to pay the amount that is stipulated in the policy, the insured value, the stated amount. All right, it's $100,000 on the policy, total loss, that's what they're going to pay, not more nor less. Now, what some people will do is say, well, I only owe $50,000 to the bank, so I'll only get $50,000 of insurance. Well, what happens then is that if you have a loss, the insurance company is going to do a little bit different form of adjusting it. See, when a claim happens, they're going to look at the what's the damage, repair amount, what's the repair cost. They're also going to get a salvage value, and if those two numbers are pretty close to or above the insured value, they're going to total it. So you could have a partial loss. Let's say it's even a $50,000 loss. Well, it's going to make much more sense for the aircraft insurance company to total the aircraft rather than paying for the repairs. And so if they do that, then you're going to be out $50,000 worth of, aircraft insurance value. That's called a constructive total loss. So, if that is all boring to you, just know that you want to insure the aircraft for what it would take to replace it with one of like, kind, and quality. And obviously, if you overinsure the aircraft, you're going to pay more premium, and it's going to be harder to get a total when you want a total. So insure the aircraft. So that's something you don't want to do to lower your premium, is to lower your insured value. It will have negative consequences you won't enjoy in the event that you have a claim. Well, those are the key factors that I would say that you can do proactively as a pilot. And again, I'm sure there's always other little things depending on your circumstances, but those are the key things you can do to help reduce your premium for your aircraft insurance policies, and certainly improve terms. All right. Here's the next one. What is an aviation insurance broker? Usually when we talk about aviation insurance or any kind of insurance, we used to talk about the term agent, and aviation insurance, we use that term loosely. And in short, an aviation insurance broker is someone who represents the client to, multiple insurance companies, whereas an agent is really the agent of the company, of the insurance company. So an insurance agent represents the insurance company. Aviation insurance broker represents the customer. So in aviation insurance, almost all but one or two carriers works exclusively through aviation insurance brokers. And so as an aviation insurance purchaser, so an aircraft owner, you go to an aviation insurance broker, someone who is appointed to do business in the state where you're located with the insurance companies that write aviation insurance coverage. Now, some people will, write home and auto insurance, and they will find, a broker like me or one of my friendly competitors to be a co-broker or sub-broker to place the business for them. But at the end of the day, the broker that places the coverage with the insurance company has to be appointed to do business with the company in the state that they are, that the insured is located. Both in some cases, the broker and the agent. So the broker will get the insurance information they need from you, all your risk data. So the better data you give them, certainly about training and safety and those type of things, the better job you're going to do for your broker, because the broker, their job is to paint the best picture of your risk to the insurance company. So give them great data. Now, here's a bonus question. How do you pick the right aviation insurance broker? How do you pick the right aviation insurance broker? Well, I'm an aviation insurance broker, and so I may, seem biased, but let me just give you an unbiased view. Having been in this business more than a quarter century and learned from my dad, who's been in it over 50 years, is that there are a lot of great people in this industry, and some of them can say, I'm going to get you the best price. And especially people newer to the industry. At the end of the day, you want to select a broker who is ideally directly appointed with a carrier so that you're not getting too many people in the middle, that they specialize in the niche that you're in. So they've written the type of aircraft you fly or the type of operations you do. And number three is that they really understand the insurance policies, because folks, that is something that unfortunately a lot of folks in the industry just don't. And that's true of any insurance industry, honestly. There are very complex policies. You're working with a number of companies that have different policies. So you want the type of broker who is going to both work to get you the best possible terms, however, that really understand the nuances of the policies and coverages, because there's also the fact that so many of us, we get contracts we have to deal with, right? From the airport, fixed base operators, maybe the bank. And so you also need your broker to really understand the contractual implications involved that affect your aviation insurance policy. So, you want someone, really experienced, who's going to spend the time to get to know you, your circumstances, who can actually know how to address some of these other risks other than just getting you the best price for physical damage, liability, and, the key coverages. They really need to understand the nuances, the things you're doing outside of the basics, and to be able to address those contractual exposures. So that's the unbiased, just factual viewpoint, and I think you can see that those things make sense. All right, next question. Is aviation insurance required by law? I think people ask that because, most states require people that have automobiles or drive automobiles to have an automobile liability insurance. And the short answer is, for the most part, no. Now, anyone, aircraft are expensive. So anyone who has an aircraft lender or a lien or mortgage, whatever, not a mortgage, but a lien for the aircraft, their bank is going to probably require physical damage coverage and liability coverage. If you operate on an airport or have a hangar lease agreement, most of those agreements will require you to have some sort of aircraft and or aviation insurance coverage. And in addition, there are other parties or contracts that may require it, but the states don't require it typically. And there are a few folks who try to self-insure it, but there are other advantages of carrying the insurance besides requirements, because that in the event of a loss, not only do you get the primary coverages, the physical damage and the liability, but you typically get a legal defense, an expert legal defense, right, from people who are used to and in the business of defending legal loss liability lawsuits or claims that's in the aviation or aircraft realm. So obviously having aviation insurance is very important given the great exposures. That's typically not required by law, but it's required by a lot of other people. So that's the answer to that question. And finally, what are other types of aviation insurance that are typically needed or required? Well, that's a great question, because aviation businesses like fixed base operators, maintenance, repair, overhaul facilities, flight schools, charter operations, they have a whole host of exposures. Not just the aircraft physical damage and liability. They get into the need for aviation general liability for their exposures to the aircraft or the airport premises operations and the aircraft servicing operations. That comes with a lot of exposures and a lot of coverages, and the aviation commercial general liability policy is made to address that, but requires a lot of specialized treatment. So um, some aircraft owners actually have some of the aviation CGL coverages on their aircraft insurance policy, like premises liability and so on and so forth. But your exposure to your operations on the airport, not in your aircraft, is definitely something to consider. Aviation businesses also have automobile liability exposures, building, hangar, property, tools, contents, all that are on a commercial property type policy, workers' compensation, environmental pollution legal liability. That's a big one in aviation, and a lot of people just don't buy the coverage. Unless kind of a fuel leak is caused by a covered cause of loss or by an occurrence on your aircraft insurance policy, seepage out of containers, seepage of environmental pollution, fuel tank spills, those type of things, they are not covered by any other policy except for an environmental pollution liability policy. And there's so many more, right? So anybody in the business of aviation has a lot more exposures that need to be addressed. We have the airlines that I've talked about before. They have some unique exposures. They have some unique methods of handling and writing the aircraft insurance. And certainly we have space insurance that is even more specialized and really has just a handful of carriers and brokers working in that space. So the aerospace insurance industry covers a wide spectrum of aerospace insurance exposures with a wide variety of aviation or aerospace insurance coverage solutions. And that's why, again, working with a specialized broker is so important. Again, these are our big topics, so I could go on for hours about each one, but that's a quick answer, surface level at least, big picture to these questions. So I hope you enjoyed going over some of the frequently asked questions in aviation insurance part 2. Join us again next time as we continue navigating the waypoints in aviation insurance. Until then, enjoy clear skies and unlimited visibility.